tribalism, kind of like what we see in everyday life. It's engineered division dressed in the costume of belonging, right? Psyops that target the brain, but they also infect the spirit. I've talked about it before, like the theory of the eighth sphere. And so social media isn't just a technology, it's an energetic weapon system. It's a psyop tool, and it's a machine designed to hijack your nervous system and fragment your spiritual power and fracture and scatter your consciousness so that you don't have your focus or your consciousness, your aim. That's one of your most valuable resources, is your attention and your consciousness. So it divides us into these like false tribes, like this tribal thinking with the ego, when it fuels the ego and feeds us like slogans and buzzwords and these false identities of being and belonging. So they tell us things like, real people don't think like this, you're not a good person, or only fools believe that. These are all like not just statements, but neural triggers designed to spark like FOMO and shame and a tribal anxiety of wanting to belong, to be part of the group, to fit in and to conform. People develop a fear, and like it invokes rage within them, and this all manipulates your emotional body. So it floods the emotional body, kind of like drowns it, so that all the logic goes out the window. So you're not even like thinking of the logic of things, and it just shuts completely off. So when you're scared or excluded, isolated, you don't think, you just follow. You conform, and it's not necessarily to truth, but it's to the narrative of things and what the underlying narrative that is being pushed, the actual goal. So it's the script of conformity, fear or exile. And it's not just mental warfare, it's spiritual warfare, it's energetic warfare. And it's a fracture to the collective of our kundalini that, raises up the spine, comes through all the chakras to bringing light to the brain. And it does all this programming you with the buzzwords, the slogans that bypass rational thought. So it creates the us versus them dynamic, right, in politics, and it polarizes the psyche when we, in reality, we are all one, and it gets us too divided. But that's also the goal, to like divide us by, sex, gender, political beliefs, whatever it may be, religion, and they just keep dicing us into different pieces, and it's feeding your nervous system a constant drip of hope, outrage, fear, grief, pride. It's like a perfect cocktail to short circuit your ajna, which is your third eye chakra. And this is one of your most important chakras because it has to do with attention and focus, your drive, but it's also the governor, like sub of all your major chakras. So like when you do energy work, you usually work on the ajna first because that can help get in tune your other chakras, your heart. But also by attacking the third eye with putting stuff in the food, water, air, like whatever's going on to calcify things, to attack the pineal gland, it also overrides your crown chakra, which is your spiritual connection, your satellite dish to God. And so the mind becomes trapped more in the lower chakras, which keeps us into more of a primitive tribal state, like in our lower desires, kind of. These are where all the animalistic things are, and we become more reactive, and that's why people can be triggered more easy, because they're acting in anger, instinct, survival, fear. It's because this is more of a survival, instinctual area, the lower chakras, and so it gets us more trapped into like group thinking instead of thinking for yourself, because by attacking the ajna, when you don't have your willpower, that makes you more easier to be just controlled and more of a slave state. So instead of ascending the spiral of the kundalini up, you spin sideways into like these tribal war zones, and it gets scattered, and it's designed by intelligence operations and algorithms that we're seeing. So the energy that was meant to rise as kundalini energy, instead is being coerced into false identities, into these secular things and tribal thinking. Instead of a soul activation, we get like more of an algorithmic activation, that synthetic I was mentioning earlier, being a slave to the digital realm, the virtual realm, instead of spiritual sovereignty. So this is more of a war on your attention and your consciousness more than it is what's going on. It's more the attack of your energetic system. And so when they hijack the nervous system and keep you reactive, you're in constant survival mode. You just submit and you don't thrive. You're in survival mode versus thrive. So Kundalini doesn't rise in a divided system. When your system's scattered and broken, you can't reach your full potential. And so it rises when the masculine, which is your right, feminine, and left, unite. So like the Kundalini through the nadis goes through each of the chakras all the way up to the brain. And that's what we try to do here. So then it doesn't do that when we're at war within ourselves and we're under attack constantly. So like, what's the antidote to this? Stillness to begin with, becoming still, and through that stillness be able to have an awareness and being aware of what's going on, to be able to step back and witness your consciousness, and that you are the observer. You're not the thoughts, you're not the emotions, you're not the mind even. You are the observer of those things. You're not the car, you're the driver of the car, the vehicle. The energetic integrity to reclaim your nervous system from the hijack. And that's why we practice Kundalini, is so that we can reboot and reclaim our nervous system and keep it running at an optimal rate. So we breathe, we meditate, and we can transmute these energies, because psyops collapse in the presence of the Kundalini fire. Once Kundalini is activated, something radical happens. Emotions and reactions, they no longer control you. You begin to see the game behind the game. You start to see glitches in the matrix. You see what is being pushed and projected onto you, because you're not these thoughts, you're not these emotions. You stop asking, what tribe am I in, right? You start asking, what part of my soul have I forgotten? You start trying to return to yourself, the true self, the spiritual self, so that you can ascend and not buy in to all these things that we're seeing today. It's sad, because it's just whatever side you look at it, it's just the front line of the chessboard. Like, really, what's getting accomplished? There's dividing and destruction more among us. And the spiritual path demands that you exit all these artificial tribes, not to become a hermit, but to become whole. And you begin in your full power with self-mastery, empowerment. And from this place, you can re-enter the world as like a bridge in a healing channel, and not as the pawn that they want. You're not here to be programmed. You're here to be reborn in the fire of direct knowledge and direct knowing, returning to yourself, having intuition, and just knowing and feeling, and being in more of a heart-centered state. And so how this system is going to win, it's not with guns, but with the algorithms that short-circuit your soul. But once we raise the Kundalini, you see through the illusion, you see through the matrix, you have the vision, and you stop reacting and you just start witnessing. And in that stillness, you reclaim your energy, your sovereignty. Kundalini burns all that lie, of what you were told, who you were supposed to be, who you were supposed to serve. Your sovereign soul. It's your natural right. It doesn't care about political sides. It doesn't care about the celebrity scripts. It doesn't care about keeping up with the Kardashians or the trending narratives that are going on. It only rises when you unplug from all of that noise in stillness and you return to the truth. So today, we're going to step away from the whole feed and unplug from, everything that's going on, and feel the breath and your own energy. So today, ask yourself maybe later when we hit the meditation, who am I beneath the programming? Who am I besides the underlying of who I was told to be? And return to yourself.